Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Riots have now erupted in the streets of Paris after France's left defeated the far right in an unexpected election victory. Footage, as is also visible on your screens, shows bonfires being burnt in the streets as police in riot gear clashed with demonstrators, and tear gas also was used by the police in an attempt to disperse rioters. The outcome of the snap election saw no group winning an absolute majority. The left is emerging as the biggest group in the new parliament, but has yet to even agree on a figure who it would want to be the new Prime Minister of France. What will happen next? How will the protests end is the big question. Joining us live is Veena Sikri, former diplomat. We also have Surinder Singh Lali, international affairs expert, live with us. Alok Bansal, foreign affairs expert, is joining us live. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, is also with us on the broadcast. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Sikri. What do you make of this surprise result in France of their elections, and also the riots and the protests that have erupted post?
Yes, this is an indication of a new volatility in French politics that they are not used to. In many other countries of Europe, they have coalition governments quite readily. But in France, they are not used to it. And even at the present government, which is President Macron's centre-right coalition led by Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, even this government is not a majority government. It is, but it has enough of numbers to get other people to join in. But President Macron decided to call the snap election because the far right had a very good showing in the European Union elections. And he suddenly decided, he thought he'd have these snap elections and reinforce his own control over the political situation in Paris, in France. But the first round of the elections he called that were held last Monday, that the results came last Monday, showed that the far right had got almost 33% of the vote. And this, at that time, a week ago, led to riots by the far left because they said, oh, we can't let the far right come in. So then there was a second round, because this is French politics. You have to win more than 50% of the vote to be declared elected. In the second round, which the results have come today, the situation has been completely reversed. And the far left is now the single largest group, followed by Macron's group. And then the far right is in the third position. So today we have riots on the street led by the far right, who are disappointed that they have not been able to consolidate their first round showing, and that they are now in the third position. But still, we must note that the far right still has around 140 plus seats in the 577 member assembly, and this is their single largest and highest showing ever. Their highest showing had been 2 years ago in 2022 when these elections were held, and that time the far right had a little less than 100 seats, but this time they've got 140, but still less than a majority. Now what's going to happen next? The Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, has resigned, but he's been asked to continue as caretaker Prime Minister till the problem can be solved. It is up to President Macron himself to call the group to form the next elections. Certainly, he's not going to do anything in a hurry. The Paris Olympics are happening beginning July 26th, and he would not like to meet the Paris Olympics with either riots in his country or with an uncertain government over which he has no control. So I think he's going to bide his time. He's going to see what he can cobble together. And in the end, possibly, he will himself be able to cobble together a group under his party coalition. But that's still in the future. In the meantime, for the next 2 weeks, he's going to try and control the riots, bring peace to the country, because there are a huge number of visitors expected for the Paris Olympics. And the far right and the far left are going to battle it out on the streets if they can, if the government allows them.
Yes. Is this going to usher in, Surinder Singh Lali, period of instability for France with no party right now having majority? Are we heading towards a hung parliament? Are we also headed towards an uncertain future over who is going to be the next president and who is going to be the next prime minister of this country?
Political limbo and infighting are two words which I'm looking at, as Ambassador Sikri rightly said, that the French are not quite, neither do they have the temperament or the mindset to be a part of this sort of a fractured mandate. So much so in this election, the left has become more stronger and the right has in fact doubled their votes. So that ought to give you an idea of the kind of fireworks that's going to happen. I mean, the presidential election is still a few years away, but choosing the next prime minister is going to be a big challenge because the most popular leader from the left, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he's not quite known for his temperament. And, I don't think he'll be able to pull a coalition of this kind. So I think given the French Olympics, the commitment to the Ukraine war and how France is the second biggest economy in Europe, has a lot of influence, in the European Union and with their allies. So as they say in the US, Houston, I think we do have a problem. And I see a lot of fireworks happening in France till the next election happens.
Yes, Alok Bansal, what do you believe has led to these protests breaking out? And how long do you expect them to last?
The protests have primarily broken out because the right-wing parties, the extreme right, probably expected after their good showing in first round that they would win. And I think the sort of results that have eventually come have led to a shock because they were leading. And in fact, even in the European Parliament elections, they had done extremely well. And right has seen a resurgence across continental Europe. So despite the return of left in UK, there was a widespread belief that right-wing parties would probably gain ascendance in France. And this shock defeat has actually stirred the supporters of right-wing parties to actually indulge in violence, which probably is resulting in this sort of a result. Because now France is going to see a period of very great tumult because this results show that there is deep polarization. You have far left and far right, because within the new Popular Front, it is the far left which has actually the maximum seats. They contested the maximum number of seats. The socialists and communists were relatively junior partners in the new Popular Front. So you have extreme left, and now here you have extreme right. So eventually, I think the centrist alliance will have to call the shots. And I think that is one of the reasons why President has not accepted the Prime Minister's resignation. He has actually asked him to continue for the time being, not as an interim, but continue for the time being. So that means his resignation has not yet been accepted, and he continues as hitherto till there is another party which is in a position to stake claims to form the government. And I don't know when that happens, because we can see a great period of instability forthwith. As per the French constitution, for 1 year, president cannot dissolve the parliament, but maybe after 1 year, if this sort of instability continues, he may again go for another elections, and which could, I don't know, whose results may well be equally uncertain at this point of time.
Okay, let me quickly, in fact, also rope in Gautam Mukherjee into this conversation. Gautam, have the results surprised many? Which is why these protests have erupted. What is the India viewpoint on the mandate that the people of France have given? How should we in India be viewing this?
For the first time in recent memory, the French are going to have to form a coalition. And this is something that is quite common in a number of other countries in Europe. Certainly very common in Israel, and to a certain extent in our part of the world as well. So coming to terms with it, luckily the centrists control a big chunk. The leftists, as Alok pointed out, are splinter groups who have come together in order to form a sort of left front. And you've got the right. The right has, all over Europe, they have gained strength, but they haven't come to the point where they are, able to cobble together a majority. Even in Italy, they have a coalition with a dominant right, but it's still a coalition. So what happens here is having to get along with both the left and the right, and possibly introducing laws and procedures that sometimes come from the left, sometimes come from the right. I think it's going to be very difficult to reconcile their various ideological and administrative positions, but you'll have to give some to each. And, it's going to be a challenge for the centrists, but there is no go, and they will have to take care of it. As far as India is concerned, it really doesn't make much difference. The president stays in place. Their commitments to India and their offers, which are in the pipeline, will not be affected, I don't think. The left and the right have no quarrel with that. And so for us, it really doesn't make that much of a difference for that.
Okay. Ambassador Sikri, what do you believe led to this sudden, change in the mandate that the French people have given? Exit polls, of course, predicted this yesterday, but opinion polls had predicted something very different. Also, the first phase had also gone in favor of the far right. What do you believe changed on ground?
Well, there are two trends here that we have to take notice of. First of all, the change in 1 week from the far right leading to the far right being number 3 is due to the left parties coming together. Now, this new Popular Front, which is the left coalition which has won the maximum number of seats, this is a combination of 4 different left parties, which include the socialists, the communists, the ecologists, and the ultra group called France Unbowed. So these 4 parties decided to come together, and by preventing a split of the vote, of the left vote among each of them, they have been able to get the largest number of seats, the largest number of group seats. But whether this coalition of 4 parties will stick together, whether President Macron and his group will be able to break into this and get some of these people to support them. So this is a thing for negotiation which is now happening. But the second trend that we have to recognize that's happening all over Europe is a swing to the far right. This is an anti-immigrant, strongly anti-immigrant movement that is happening all over Europe, and we saw the reflection in the elections to the European Union Parliament, which is what caused President Macron to call these snap elections, which have led him into a worse situation, a much more complicated and complex situation than he would have ever anticipated. But certainly the swing to the far right among all the countries of Europe is something that has to be taken into contention. We've seen the statement by Marine Le Pen, the leader of the RN, the Rassemblement National, that she says, well, the silver lining is that we have 50% more seats than they have won in the last election in 2022. And she says we are on track to win power, and she's looking forward to standing again for the president's post for the 4th time in the next elections 3 years down the line, when President Macron cannot then stand for another term. So then the presidency will be up and open, much more open than it was in the last elections. So these are 2 trends that we have to take on board. For the next 3 years, it will be all right because President Macron is going to continue as president for the next 3 years. But during these 3 years, we certainly have to be in touch with a much wider range of players and political opinions in France, and to see what impact this is likely to have on their relations with India, and what the opinion of these other groups are on strengthening the relations with India. Because President Macron has a very clear perspective and a very strong perspective on relations with India, and especially on defense and security and strategic ties, on ties over the Indo-Pacific. So he has very, very strong and good relations. India-French relations are in a very, very good place, a very good strategic partnership indeed. But how this will be after 3 years is, we will soon know in the first instance how this government forms, and then in the lead up to the next 3 years.
Yes. Okay, let me take that to Surinder Singh Lally as well. Surinder Singh Lally, as far as, of course, the French are concerned, this is something that, many were predicting was going to happen. This slant of France towards the far right, that's something that has not happened, as these results, of course, show just yet. But with, of course, the fractured mandate, what is its, which direction do you believe France is going to head in post this? And also, is this reflective of the mood in Europe right now, of a sort of confused polity, with UK swearing towards the left, to Labour, but much of Europe going towards the right, as we've seen in other country elections?
Uday, I think I just wish to add to what Ambassador Sikri said, that one of the reasons why this swing happened from the first to the second phase was that somewhere Marine Le Pen has a very strong image of not only being anti-immigration, but if I may use that with absolute caution, is being racist. So as if now the French people still find her too strong and too formidable. But my fear is for the next, till the next election happens, the fireworks that's going to happen, I see a strong tilt again happening towards the right, and it's only a matter of time till we see Marine Le Pen get the top job.
Yes. Okay. Let me take that to Alok Bansal as well. Alok Bansal, also on the Indian viewpoint on all of this. How should we be viewing the way the country now is headed and the situation that is developing with this sort of internal turmoil within, at least in the short term?
See, firstly, I think like in the US, in France also, by and large, irrespective of the party in power, I think French-Indian relations will be on even keel because there is some amount of congruence, of convergence of interests and general goodwill. However, there are issues which may affect issues like far-right anti-immigration policy may lead to racism, which may be anti-Indians as well. So that could create a problem. Far left wants to shut down nuclear plants completely. I don't know how it will impact on Indo-French nuclear cooperation. We have a lot of nuclear plants coming up with French collaboration, how that would impact on them. So some of these issues are there which may have incremental issues, because at this point of time, any divergence on even a minor issue is played up in the media as if it's a major divergence. Some divergence is bound to happen. But by and large, I feel France and India would have good relations. We have had good relations even in the worst of times. Even after the nuclear tests, when the whole world was actually sanctioning us, we had reasonably good relations, and President Jacques Chirac had come for the Republic Day parade, actually signaling that India is not isolated. So I think French-Indian relations will continue, but within France, I see a period of immense turbulence, because this sort of coalition governments, if at all it comes into being, will remind you of the Third Republic, that had very, very short stay. In fact, when governments would fall at very, very short duration, and eventually the constitution had to be changed. And far left also wants a new constitution to be brought in. In fact, one of their demands of this France Unbound is that a new constitution needs to be set up. A new constituent assembly should be brought in, which should decide on a new constitution, proportional representations. There are some radical demands that they have put forward. I don't know how it will pan out in days to come.
Yes, also as far as, of course, this new front is concerned, which has got the mandate. What do you believe are going to be the policies of France and the way the country is going to turn to Gautam post this result that, of course, has emerged? Because this is a coalition that has got this mandate, not a complete and absolute one, but of course a considerable lead.
Well, I think, as I said before, that there will be certain initiatives of the left that will have to be accommodated. What must be remembered is that the left is not a homogeneous group. It's left, middle left, far left. They've come together, and together they have a fairly large presence, whereas the right is more or less unified and has, as it was said just now, doubled their strength. Whether it will proceed in a linear fashion to actual power and a majority remains to be seen, because the situation all over Europe is quite fluid. France and Germany are the biggest powers in the EU, and both are suffering economic consequences at the present moment. They are looking at their China policy and wondering what to do in terms of either cutting back while their dependence is quite high. The centrists have actually decided to keep going with China, and the rightists may not want to do so, and if they don't, well, what's the alternative? The left, similarly, their economy is the bone of contention that you may have, issues with. The other point that I want to make is France has been traditionally, at least since the French Revolution, left. And now they want a shorter week. They want to have very strong trade union movements. They've always had this sort of attitude. And as a consequence, to turn its, if you like, its tone and tenor to the right is going to be difficult. At the same time, because of the strength of the right, it will be difficult to ignore it. But you do have a lot of immigrants from North Africa and other countries. You've got an ethnic problem, you've got a religious problem, you've got riots, you've got ghettos. But all of this leans left. And how will the rightists actually try to change this? You might be able to reduce immigration to some extent, but it won't be easy. So all in all, it's going to be a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, with the centrists controlling the show, because both sides will have to depend on the centrists to actually make anything happen.
Yes, but the kind of anarchy on the streets, the kind of instability would also be a concern, Ambassador Sikri, as the country gears up to host the Olympics. Paris, where also these protests have been witnessed, is going to be seeing delegations and sportsmen from across the world converge very, very soon.
Yes, this is a major embarrassment for President Macron, and his own Prime Minister has at some time expressed disappointment as to why President Macron called these snap elections. But even President Macron, in his wildest imagination, would not have imagined riots on the streets, last week and this week, and there's less than 2 weeks left, only 18 days left for the Paris Olympics to start. And not only is it going to be a major embarrassment because you're going to have visitors pouring in, sportsmen of the best caliber, the world's best sports persons coming to France and expecting a wonderful, peaceful situation and a great reception, and they're going to be faced with riots and disturbances. So I think that President Macron has his work cut out for him to try and stitch together a stable coalition, get people support so that he himself, his own coalition, would be able to form a government. But it looks very difficult because if the left unity persists, and they do have the largest number of seats, as of now, it may be difficult for President Macron. So he may prefer to calm the situation and leave it unchanged. Leave President Gabriel Attal as the caretaker prime minister and go into the Olympics and see it through, and then afterwards continue to work on the situation. It is a major embarrassment for him. He would not have imagined it, but it is a very difficult situation, and one just hopes that in the Olympics they go off peacefully and there's no violent instance of any various kinds, because we've seen, in previous Olympics in Europe, all kinds of violent incidents. Remember the Munich Olympics, and we all wanted to go off peacefully. But we know that the left front's views on many situations are very, very extreme, whether it is pensions, whether it is working day week, whether it is retirement age. On Gaza, they want recognition of Palestine immediately, they're very anti-Russian. So, it's a very difficult situation, and you don't know where it will go if he's unable to control it in the next few days.
All right, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. We've run out of time. It's time for a short break.